Okay, just sharing a little bit about our final plaster stage. So it's been a lot of learning. You can see that we've got a little bit of the sand being exposed, like the little rocks. That seems to just kind of come up when we do some sponging over the final plaster. And it's just a little part of the character of the final plaster. We've gone through the process of plastering over some rough coat sculpting, which is kind of cool. You can see it really does a nice look on the corners over there. This is Adèle from France. So the process with doing this final plaster, so the final plaster comes after the rough coat. So the rough coat is, or the brown coat is the sand, straw, and clay. So this is some rough coat here. This is the rough coat here. Sand, straw, clay. The straw is a chopped straw, so you can see it has some seeds that were actually sprouting some grass. And then this final plaster is a mix of clay, sand, a finer sand that is sifted, and the clay is also sifted as well, just to get anything rough out, and then also cellulose. So some people will use an even finer chopped straw. Apparently some people even use cattail fluff. We are using cellulose, which you can get from most hardware stores. So we have Thibault and Roni up here plastering. So essentially the process is to first wet an area with a paintbrush, and then so wet likes to stick to wet, so the mix is wet and the walls are dry. So we wet the wall, as Thibault is doing there, and then we will put some plaster on with the hand. We find using latex gloves helpful so that the plaster mix doesn't stick to your hand as you put it on. And then once you put that on, and you're just kind of smearing it into the wall, there's a little bit of elbow grease there to apply the mix on. Then after that you'll do a little bit of troweling, which is what Roni is doing over here. So we're using yogurt containers. They've got a curve, a natural curve to them, and so it's that curved part that is actually the troweling part. And we've cut rounded edges in those yogurt containers, so that there's no sharp edges that dig up any final plaster that's there. So that's that part of the process. We've got more happening over here. We have learned that it's best to do it top down, so that any layers that go up don't end up falling on previously finished layers. We've had to make some exceptions in some areas because the lower areas were just drier faster. So we have Quincy here who is doing some of the sponging. So the sponging happens once the final plaster has dried, or is more dry. And so it's just having a wet sponge and using it to scrape the wall, which will flush up any of the rocks that you can then wipe away with a towel. So yeah, that's the process. And the sponging gives a little bit more forgiveness. So any cracks that are showing up, often these cracks are a sign of too much or too little sand. Meaning there's too much clay, and hi Sebastian, that's my little son. There's too much clay, so when the clay dries it creates cracks. I know, I will soon. So a little bit more sand will help, but also a little bit of sponging over that area will probably address those cracks. So that is the process, and yeah, I'll show you when we're all done.